Uh, Thank you, Ambazonian greatness. Greetings, greetings, greetings. How you doing? How's your uh, thank you, Ralph, for joining in. Thank you. Today, uh, I am speaking today. You can always watch me, Transparency International, TMI, Transparency Media International. TMI, you can always watch me live on my YouTube and on my Facebook. And I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are tuned in this evening. This is Fulton Daniel. I will be speaking here on my YouTube, Transparency Media International TMI, and on my Facebook. So either way, you should be able to get me live. Greetings, 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 and thank all of you for tuning in. Thank you. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Uh, so today I'm going to talk about a lot of issues, but one more specific response is the word separatist. So how you are doing? And if you're in Germany, I want to thank you. Here in the United States, thank you for tuning in, wherever you are. And if you are here in the great state of Texas, here in the United States, if you are in Washington, D.C., if you are all around the United States, I want to take a moment to thank all of you that are tuned in to Transparency Media International TMI. And if you are in Europe, and I mean some of our brothers in Europe, they probably be awake, or they are survive not. And our brothers and sisters who are in ground zero, and those in neighboring country, La Republic, and thank all of you that are tuned in again. There's a lot of things that I will be talking about, but the most specifically is the word separatist. And that will be one of the key agenda that we will be talking the word separatist. Because there is unfortunate that we have certain members at the United Nations that they have trouble understanding what the word they need to expose to the public and what they should use and how they should use it appropriately. And once more again, I want to thank all of you that are tuned in this evening. Here again, my name is Funton Daniel here for Transparency Media International TMI. So, uh, let me proceed with this announcement. I want to take a moment of silence for the Vice Principal of GBHS Bello. The Vice Principal of GBHS Bello was shot dead by La Republique du Cameroon military that are currently uh, destroying our property. And so the vice principal of GBHS and especially the student of the GBHS And for our condolence to the GBHS vice principal of GBHS Bello. He was shot dead by La Republic terrorist army that are currently invading the southern Cameroon territory. And for those in Bangui, I want to let you know, although it's 11 o'clock, remember that the terrorist army of La Republic, they are currently heading towards your area. And so therefore, I am notified that those in the Bangui area, that there is some trucks of La Republic terrorists that are heading to your area. So if you are aware, make sure every trees are felled and blocks every entrance. If there is stones, whatever you can take to make sure that you block every access to La Republic terrorists to penetrate in our territory. From Santa, where the custom area. You remember that the custom in Santa, the gate is still there. If La Republic knew that they were part of Southern Cameroon, that gate should have been removed long time ago. But we still have that gate, indicate that there are two separate nations, and that gate indicate uh, when you are entering the Southern Cameroon territory from Western Province. The first place you get in is Santa, and there you have the custom gate. That custom signify that there are two separate nations, and that we now is to enforce that we are totally, completely separate from La Republic. And so anyone or individual that is dealing with La Republic should understand that there are two nations now, and that we will no longer be part of La Republic in any circumstances. For those who are still jubilating with La Republic, you are doing so at your own risk, because we are moving forward. So for those in Benue, we are letting you know that the terrorists of La Republic is heading towards your way, and you know all what you have to do. And I want to take our sincere condolence to one of our moms. Well, it's not a condolence, but one of our mom, which I couldn't get down her name here, that in Esu area, in Esu, that is womb area, her homes was burned down completely to ashes, and she found this nature of her home. She was deeply frustrated, and she couldn't know what to do. She doesn't know where to go, except she should be heading back to the forest, where she will find comfort in the midst of atrocity by La République du Cameroon. And another condolence, a Kenyan missionary, because there is a series of assassinations that is currently going on. There is a series of assassinations going on in the southern Cameroon territory. And this is being perpetrated by the neighboring country, La Republic of Cameroon. And this missionary is from Kenya. You are aware that the previous assassination of an American missionary, Charles Wesco, whose burial will be laid in session somewhere here in the United States. And this is not the first assassination attempt on Christian missionaries. Another assassination was done on one Ghanaian missionary in southern Cameroon territory. And later there is a series of other Cameroon missionaries or southern Cameroon church leaders, and they were assassinated by the terrorist government of La Republic in southern Cameroon territory. And this is an ongoing assassination that is currently going on. And so I am bringing this attention to our fellow brothers and sisters in and around the world, that we are at war, and the war is penetrating our territory, and that we need to accept and face the reality. For those who are not aware, for those who are still deciding, I want to bring your attention this evening that we are at war, and that the war is declared on us by a neighboring country, La Republique du Cameroon. We will not relent our effort and to stand firmness that we must renew and our strength against our enemy, La Republique du Cameroon. So it is imperative that for all of us, we are at war. Our brothers and sisters, our mothers, our homes are being burnt into ashes. But today I am going to be focusing on the word separatist. And that is one that's going to take the entire conversation, separatist. But before we proceed to that word separatist, I want to talk about the Bali, the people of Bali. I want to assure you that we, the people of Southern Cameroon, all of us in the diaspora, we stand with you together. That we will not relent our effort for the strength and to sustain our sovereignty. And that you, the people of Bali, and that we will never neglect you. We stand shoulder to shoulder against the enemy, against our adversary. The enemy will never overcome our objectives, our goals. And that we stand together, whether you are from Bali, whatever Bali, I know there's a series of Bali, but the Bali Nyonga, we stand together in the midst of atrocity. The people of Ngokutunja, we are at war. The people of Ngokutunja, there are certain individuals that they do not want the word to be discussed within our meetings or our gathering. But I'm here to let you know that we are at war. And so we are at war, and during the period of war, every citizen has the right to voice their comment, wherever they are, without fear of repercussion. For those who are still have their legs attached to La Republique, and they believe that there's something going to change. But I am here to let you know that we are together in this business. We stand together with the people of Bui. The people of Bui, we are together. We know that many of the souls have been sacrificed. The souls that have been sacrificed in the people of Bui. It strengthens us, make us a better people. That we know that even in a great nation like the United States, they suffer through war to become what they are. It always strengthens the people of the United States that after every crisis, the United States stand and learn from every evidence from their adversary and become more stronger than ever before. And so the people of Booth, we are together in this business. So every soul that has been sacrificed, the sacrifice is for us to be a better people, and so that we can define our future. And we will not relent our effort collectively or individually, that we are here in this business. You all understand. You all understand the magnification speech that was made in the neighboring country parliament. And we stand firm with that magnification of speech that was made by Honorable Weaver. So we are in this business together, the people of Bui and the entire people of Bui, that we are in this deep, stronger period more than before. For those who are behind and are not aware of the reality, I encourage you that we will no longer live together in the same home and share the same food with La Republique, and that we are moving forward. For the people of Kumba, I want to take a moment to thank all of you that our effort will never be forgotten, but will always be remembered. The people of Manfred, the people of Manu, the people of Fako, the people of Victoria, the people of Tico, we are together. We will not make any relentless. We will stand and defend our territory. Remember that the enemy thinks that they are smarter than we, but unfortunately, they are in the wrong time of the game. I can assure you that we must achieve our goal, and that the enemy thinks that they are planning against us, but we will never relent our efforts. And I am encouraging all of us that we are at war and that the enemy are regrouping. But we must prevent the enemy from regrouping. We must block every access. We must prevent every access for the enemy to get entrance into our territory. From Douala, we must cut the link, that link La Republic to our own territory. Every track of the road must be blocked. Every initiative must be blocked to prevent La Republic to penetrate into our territory. We should not block one single entrance. And we block every entrance and fortify it and wait for La Republic because we are at war. We will not relent our efforts. Our people we have been very honest towards La Republic, but yet they choose the wrong time. So we must relent our effort and free our people. But before we proceed, I want to first of all play this short video, and then we will then proceed there. Strongly condemn the human rights violations and abuses that have plagued people in the northwest and southwest regions of Canada. We urge the armed secessionist groups to refrain from the use of violence. We urge the government to respect and protect the rights of all. In addition, we strongly condemn the human rights violations and abuses that have plagued people in the northwest and southwest regions of Canada. We urge the armed secessionist groups to refrain from the use of violence. We urge the government to respect and protect the rights of all. In addition to the high-profile abduction and subsequent release of 78 students and 3 staff at a secondary school in Bamenda in the northwest earlier this month, we regularly receive reports of abductions, reportedly carried out by the armed secessionist groups. On the 20th of October, in the village of Roma, in the northwest town of Rouen, security forces reportedly killed 4 villagers during a confrontation with these armed groups. While on the 24th of September, 2 men suspected of being secessionist fighters were reportedly killed on the spot. All right. That was the United Nations representative. She is speaking from the United Nations, and she used the word separatist. I began to look at the word separatist, and I know I have talked about this before. She called the word separatist. Separatist when a nation is breaking away from when a part of a nation is breaking away. In this case, when the Western province is breaking, but before I dive into that word separatist, let me look at the United Nations document, which she is not aware, or if she is aware, she should have read it before use the word separatist. I know if she failed, she did not even mention the word Cameroon. She said all. I don't know if you've been following the conversation. She did not use the word Cameroon. You all know why. They're still contemplating what to define. But this piece of document is within the United Nations, which I'm going to dwell with first before I dive into the word separatist. United Nations General Assembly, 994 plenary meeting, Friday, 21st of April, 1961 at 3 p.m. in New York. The United Nations 15th session of the General Assembly President, Mr. Frederick Boland of Ireland. United Nations 15th General Assembly Vice President, Mr. Xian of China. Rapporteur of the committee report, Mr. Boy of Denmark. That was in 1961. Southern Cameroon independent vote to take effect October 1, 1961. Southern Cameroon's independence vote to take effect October 1, 1961. That was the United Nations vote at 3 p.m. in New York, and that it should take effect October 1, 1961. In a total of number, those four were 64 nations. Those against were 23 nations, and those abstained were 10 nations. And each of those nations, why is it important? It is important with the topic that we're going to be dwell on this discussion. 64 nations voted in favor. Honduras, Hungary, Iceland, India, Indonesia, Iran, Iraq, Ireland, Japan, Jordan, Laos, Lebanon, Liberia, Libya, Mali, Mexico, Morocco, Nepal, Netherlands, New Zealand, Nigeria, Norway, Pakistan, Philippines, Poland, Romania, Saudi Arabia, Sudan, Sweden, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkish, Ukraine, Union of South Africa, Union of Soviet Socialist Republic, United Arab, United Kingdom, Northern Ireland, United States of America, Venezuela, Yemen, Yugoslavia, Afghanistan, Albania, Australia, Austria, Bolivia, Bulgaria, Burma, Yugoslavia, Canada, Ceylon, Chile, Costa Rica, Cuba, Cyprus, Czechoslovakia, Denmark, Dominican Republic, Ecuador, Ethiopia, Federal Republic of Federation of Malaysia, Finland, Ghana, and Guinea. So those were the nations that voted for the independence of the people of Southern Cameroon. So the Southern Cameroon independence was voted to take effect October 1. And that is why October 1 marked the anniversary of the celebration of the United Nations vote against the Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. That was in 1961. So La République independence was voted in 1960. So during the vote of the 1961, La République wasn't part of the Southern Cameroon in the plenary sessions. Neither did the plenary sessions says it's gonna be combined. So in 1960, when La République was voted by the same organizations, they didn't say Southern Cameroon was not mentioned in that vote. So when she described the people of Southern Cameroon as a separatist, that is why the United Nations employ incompetent individuals to head the organization, because they lack verification, they lack research to substantiate and give the concrete factual information as based upon evidence. So when she, as you all watched what she said, described the separatists. So when the people of Western Province, just like the current president that has won election, Professor Maurice Kanto, that has won elections and was ignored and never recognized. Instead, if Professor Maurice Kanto choose to leave La République to form their own independent nations, in that word, secessionists, separation or separatists can be applied because Western Province has chosen to break away from the neighboring country, La République du Cameroon. So when Western Province, after Professor Maurice Kamto won election and they choose to separate, that means that is a secessionist. So when the littoral that voted in support of Professor Maurice Kamto choose to join Western Province as they declare themselves as independent, that is secessionist, because they were, prior to 1960 declaration by the United Nations, were part of La République. I am using the word La République because that was the word in their official document tabled at the United Nations in declaring La République as a nation in 1960. And so it was called La République. And so if the Western province or with littoral choose to leave La République, that is called a secessionist or a separatist. In that word, meaning they are choosing to break away from La République. That is a clear definition of secessionist or separatist. So they're separating from the original territorial integrity prior to the document that submitted at the United Nations in 1960. So the people of Southern Cameroon, when the plenary session, this is not my document, this is United Nations. This is factual evidence or document from the United Nations. The Southern Cameroon independent vote to take effect October 1st, 1961. In this document, La République is one of the voting members that are staying the voting at the United Nations. If La République knew that the Southern Cameroon was part of its territory, then why were they voting at the United Nations? They vote at the United Nations. La République vote against the Southern Cameroon in 1961 because why did they have a vote? They have a vote because they were already a nation in 1960. And that gave them an authority to participate in a voting session that took effect 1 year later, which is in 1960 against the Southern Cameroon. So if the Southern Cameroon wasn't a nation, then why was La République voted for? Because they voted in 1961. They voted against. They were one of the 23 nations that voted against the Southern Cameroon at the United Nations. Let me list the nations that voted against the people of Southern Cameroon at the United Nations. In the nations that voted were Israel, Ivory Coast, Luxembourg, Madagascar, Niger, Paraguay, Senegal, Upper Volta, Uruguay, Argentina, Belgium, Brazil, Cambodia, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Chad, China, Congo, Dahomey, France, and Gabon, Greece. Those were the nations that voted. So if La République was voted in the United Nations in 1961 against the Southern Cameroon independence, why were they participating? They participated because they were a nation in 1960, and that gave them the authority to participate in the foreign vote. And it didn't give them an authority to vote for a different nation, but a Southern Cameroon. The fact that in 1961 they vote against, despite the fact that the people of Southern Cameroon already sustained the victory of 64 nations that voted and recognized the people of Southern Cameroon as a sovereign nation. So if the Southern Cameroon was a nation, then the United Nations representative is describing as a separatist. Who is a separatist at this point? That's the clear question that I am deeply troubling with these United Nations having incompetent individuals at the head of that United Nations organization. Because when you have competent individuals working within the United Nations, this error that people will describe the people of Southern Cameroon as a separatist, they should have been competent to understand that in 1961, at 3 p.m. here in New York, the 64-member nation voted to recognize the people of Southern Cameroon as a nation. And therefore, if they voted to recognize the people of Southern Cameroon as a nation, then who now is a separatist? You see, there's something wrong here. That is why when you have an organization that is made up of incompetent individuals at the helm of the United Nations, that is why United Nations is preoccupied with bribery and corruption. United Nations is preoccupied with bribery and corruption. And that is why you will see that Antonio Guterres is an incompetent individual that is leading the organization of the United Nations to chaotic scene of bribery and corruption. United Nations is one of the organizations in the current century that the bribery and corruption has skyrocketed to the highest level. And you have member nations that are incompetent to try and fire the current Secretary General. Because if we were to argue in a state of law that a United Nations representative, like the one you just saw in these messages, is describing the people of Southern Cameroon as a separatist, then when did the United Nations session that call to vote Southern Cameroon that they have made to La République du Cameroon? United Nations doesn't have any document within its keeping that acknowledge that they voted at the United Nations after 1961, that there was another vote at the United Nations that was held and that they voted and made the Southern Cameroon with the neighboring country, La République du Cameroon. I hope that makes sense. There is no document at the United Nations that state that because in 1961, because I just read a list of the nations that voted in 1961, recognizing the sovereignty of the people of Southern Cameroon as a nation. And that was held in 1961. And if a United Nations representative is describing the people of Southern Cameroon as a separatist, then my obvious question is, when did the United Nations vote after 1961 to merge the people of Southern Cameroon with the neighboring country, La République du Cameroon, and that she had the audacity to describe the people of Southern Cameroon as a separatist? Obviously, there is no document showing that. Remember, the person, Dr. Jongu Foncha, is the architect that asked, maybe we can work together to live together, just like when you in a state of Texas, there is what they call a cohabiting relationship. A cohabiting relationship, for those who are not aware of it, a cohabiting relationship can exist where a woman and a guy met on the street or at a job place or at a nightclub or anywhere, and they decided that they are compatible and that they can live together as called boyfriend, husband, whatever you call it. But that doesn't define them that they are married. That simply means they are cohabiting. They have chosen to live together. And in that scenario, so the people of Southern Cameroon under Jongu Foncha acknowledge that they are cohabiting relationship with La République du Cameroon. By cohabiting with La République du Cameroon doesn't give La République authority over the people of Southern Cameroon. And therefore, having a United Nations officials describing the people of Southern Cameroon as a secessionist or separatist is absolutely absurd. So let's go back to that word cohabiting. So when two girls or one girl and a guy choose here in my state here in the United States, if two girls choose to live together, when they choose to separate by after living together maybe 1 year, 2 years, if they choose to separate, there is no court case that acknowledge their separation because there was never a court case at the making of them together. Does that make sense? Because if United Nations in 1961 plenary sessions voted recognizing the people of Southern Cameroon as a nation, and they choose to live with Nigeria, they choose to live with Chad, they choose to live with Central African Republic, they choose to live together with Gabon to form a union that they want to combine their resources together for the mutual interest of both nations. That is what they call a cohabiting relationship between 2 or 3 or more nations coming together. Because since their cohabiting does not acknowledge by United Nations, their immediate separation doesn't require United Nations to vote to recognize their separation. Just like here in the great state of Texas, when two women or when a woman and a man choose to cohabiting and they've been living for 1 year, 2 years, and they choose to separate, they don't require a court case to acknowledge their relationship. I hope that makes sense. It doesn't require a court case. But if they choose to marry and go to a court and present and sign a marriage certificate, that makes them husband and wife that is acknowledged by the state of Texas. And therefore, for both of them to split or separate, they require another court case or court hearing to separate their relationship from the previous relationship that they have established. So when the two choose to leave, or if they've never had a court marriage and they choose to separate, it's simply understanding between two of them that their relationship or cohabiting was fruitless, was not fruitful, and so therefore they choose to live apart. Therefore, it doesn't require a court case to acknowledge their separation. And so in this scenario, so the people of Southern Cameroon, that in 1964, the vote that was held by 1964 at the United Nations, there is no vote that has been held prior to after 1961. And so if the people of Southern Cameroon choose to leave La Republic, there should be no court case or from the United Nations to indicate that the two people of Southern Cameroon and La Republic have separated, because there was never a union established them together. There was never a court marriage between La Republic and the Southern Cameroon. And so therefore, the people of Southern Cameroon have the legal and obligated decision to choose to leave La Republic without any coercion. I hope that makes sense. So when a United Nations having incompetent individual working within its division and go on the media to express that they are separatists, then it failed to identify that in 1964, in 1961, the union has no binding. And since the union has the Declaration of Independence of the People of South Cameroon in 1961, that they are living together is non-binding. And United Nations must deliver that in my recognition or from the document that I have, Southern Cameroon has no legal authority. Liberia has no legal authority with the people of Southern Cameroon. And so therefore, the fact that they choose to cohabit together doesn't give La Republic an authority to declare war on our people and murdering our sovereign people. I hope that makes sense. There is something that people don't even understand. Why are we fighting for? We are fighting because there was never a wedding between the people of Southern Cameroon and the neighboring country, La Republic, and then the marriage certificate were never signed. And so if the United Nations did sign the marriage certificate, then let the United Nations produce the marriage certificate, acknowledge that they recognize that there was a civil union between the people of Southern Cameroon versus La Republic. I hope that makes sense, because there is a confusion that is going around. I hope that makes sense. So the fact that the people of South Africa, there shouldn't be any headache. There shouldn't be any massive killing of the people of Southern Cameroon. La Republic should be immediately pulled out of the Southern Cameroon immediately, and whether to negotiate whether they should live together, or the people who want to leave them totally separate from La Republic. It is the wishes of the people of Southern Cameroon and deciding those goals and objectives. Remember, the same relationship applied to the Enugu House of Assembly. The Enugu House of Assembly were where the British administrators were residing. When the British administrators were residing in the Enugu House of Assembly, both the representatives of the people of Southern Cameroon meet regularly with the Nigerian representative. They were both working as equal partners. And so when when Jongu Foncha and his leaders that were elected, present to the British administrator at the time, because the British administrator manages between Britain and the people of Southern Cameroon as a two separate nations. And that is why when the conduction of the election that was held and the plebiscite that was conducted, British says they want either they choose to join, they were acting as an administrative authority. They were not acting as people of Southern Cameroon. And that is why they asked the people of Southern Cameroon to vote. And so by voting is simply acknowledged. And the vote can still be cancelled. Just like it has a time frame that validates that relationship between one leadership to the next. And so in 1960, when La Republique voted for its independence, the people of Southern Cameroon was never part of that. And so for a United Nations representative to go to the media and ignorantly asking that the separatists, who are the separatists in this case, in this scenario? That is why when you employ incompetent individuals that are unqualified to be member of the decision-making body in the world, then obviously every decision they make is obviously incompetent because they are made up of an incompetent officials. Because why would a United Nations say the separatists? Says the people of Southern Cameroon, if you want to use the appropriate word, that was the word in the people of Southern Cameroon, that would be appropriate word because that was the name of the document that presented at the United Nations in 1961. And you say the people of La République because that was the name that presented. La République is a French-speaking territory. At the United Nations plenary session that in 1960 that presented the document of La République, it was presented in French. And so the name used was La République du Cameroun. And the name presented at the United Nations plenary session of the people of Southern Cameroon was the Southern Cameroon. And that was what they voted. And so if the United Nations officials want to use the concrete terminology, it should use La République in reference to the people of La République du Cameroun. The Southern Cameroon in reference to the people of Southern Cameroon. Because that was the document presented. And to be fair in analysis and judgment, by describing a secessionist, they're absolutely wrong in their analysis. So, the people of Southern Cameroon, primarily from the person that initiated these marriages that has no certificate, has written to the United Nations. Let them get the document that was presented by Jongu Foncha and release what the content of the message that Jongu Foncha before his death written to the United Nations. Let the United Nations release the document because it spellbound the people of Southern Cameroon what they are for, and that the relationship that he personally initiated has finally said, no, I cannot tolerate my initial support for this relationship, this wedding that has no relationship, this wedding that there were never a marriage certificate. I personally initiate the marriage, and that the marriage does not have any marriage certificate. And I urge United Nations to respect my fact. And this was presented to the United Nations. Let the United Nations release those documents and let the people speak, let the document speak what he said. And so let everyone read what Jongu Foncha, the architects of this wedding that never have a marriage certificate, So it is imperative, because if the United Nations is honest, let the United Nations release a document and present to the world that this is the person that initially, the architect of the wedding that never took place, and that he has written and asked us to look into the wedding, because the wedding was never took place. I hope that makes sense. So, fellow brothers and sisters of Ambazonia, we are at war, and the enemy is inflicting some damage to us. So I urge you that we are at war, and that we must face the enemy, La République. So remember that we are not a colonial territory. We are not a conquered territory. We are simply a nation that we invite someone to our home, and the person is La République and wants to describe how we should be able to live together. Imagine that they continue murdering of our people. They continue slaughtering of our people. They continue appointed Francophones to head and to decide in the future of who should we. Imagine that the governors is an appointed Francophone. Divisional officer, Francophones. Gendarmerie, Francophones. BRR, Francophones. Air Force, Francophones. All military personnel, Francophones. Police commissioner, Francophone. Every aspect is Francophone. Does it mean that we are not capable to manage ourselves? We actually has proven that we have been a nation that we fought. Remember, prior to Jongu Foncha, we have Mr. Endele. Mr. Endele was the first elected prime minister of the people of Southern Cameroon. He was elected and his vote were recognized. And the subsequent election, when Jongu Foncha was elected, his own vote were recognized. And he was recognized as the prime minister of the people of Southern Cameroon. And the last, or not of the least, is Mr. Jua Ngumjua, Augustin Ngumjua. Augustin Ngumjua was the last prime minister of the people of Southern Cameroon. So in other words, the people of Southern Cameroon has exercised democratic form of government and respect of each authority. We are the only people in this Western Africa that has exercised democracy, even including the Nigerian that are claimed to be the giant in West Africa. Southern Cameroon is the only country in West Africa that has demonstrated democratic and elected government and the transfer of power from one elected official to the next. You all remember that when J.J. Rawlings of Ghana, J.J. Rawlings executed some of the brutal dictatorship and immediately conduct an elected reform and transfer a reform to more robust elected officials. That is why we call Ghana as one of the elected officials, but the people of Southern Cameroon is one of the countries that has demonstrated democratic form of government with respect of authority, elected officials, transfer of power without any coercion. We have Ivory Coast that is still struggling. We have all those various nations within the West African region. Southern Cameroon is the only exception that has demonstrated democratic form of government and the transfer of power from one elected official to the next. And that was demonstrated by Jongu Foncha, by Endele, and later Jongu Foncha, and later Ngumjua, Augustin Ngumjua. Those were the people that they elect officials of the Southern Cameroon, and power was transferred without infighting. It was recognized, and it was an exchange of power. La République, in this case, La République du Cameroon has no in circumstances transfer power from one elected official to the next. Remember, Amadou Ahidjo was in power for 25 years. After a coup that will prevent the UPC, the potential to become the ruling party, but through a coup d'etat with the complicity of the French government. coup d'etat with the complicity of the French government. The UPC were deprived. The UPC were deprived from to rule Cameroon because of the vision they have was contrary to the French policy. And so the arrogant persuaded the UPC, and many of them took asylum in the Southern Cameroon territory. Remember that the UPC took an asylum in Southern Cameroon territory because they were being chased by Ahidjo. And now we have this mentally psychosis phobia that has been in power for 36 years and now has at 90, which with mentally degradations. And so the world community, including United Nations, are more entrusted in La Republic more than we that has demonstrated in entire West Africa as a nation that demonstrates democratic form of government. Fellow brothers and sisters, wherever you are, I can assure you that we are at war. The enemy is La Republic, and that we must overcome. We must overcome the enemy. We will overcome the enemy. Victory lies ahead. We will never allow La Republic to conquer our territory no more. We cannot live together with La Republic. This is the moment. This is the era. Unity amongst us is an effective way to conquer La Republic. I want to take a moment to thank all of you that have been listening today. That we, the people of Southern Cameroon, we are at war. And that we must face the enemy. And that victory is ahead. And I want to take a moment to thank all of you for watching. And have a good night. This is Funton Daniel speaking here from the Transparency Media International, TMI. Good night.